normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
Snow White and the 7 politically correct companions. And I think it's fair to say, so let's go through the timeline. Here's a photo, exclusive pictures of Snow White's 7 companions. One is a little person, because I guess dwarf is offensive, even though dwarf was the mythical dwarfs who are made from stone, crafted from the mud of mountains or whatever. Yep. They decided that was an insult towards little people. But this, I think, is specifically because when they announced they're making the movie, Peter Dinklage complained.
Yeah, that's right.
They probably, behind the scenes, were like, okay, if we do this, are we going to get yelled at? Okay, let's not do this. So they released this photo. So
yeah, the most famous dwarf actor says that it's insulting to hire dwarf actors.
He's the only one who wants to have a job. He doesn't want anyone else to have a job.
On it.
So I want to make sure everybody sees this timeline. From the Daily Wire on October 16th, Daily Wire announces live-action Snow White and the Evil Queen, starring YouTube sensation Brett Cooper. The bombshell announcement comes alongside the release of the company's kids streaming at Bentkey. And then we have this. October 28th, from InsideTheMagic.net, Disney whitewashes Snow White after diverse casting backlash, CGI caught by fans. So only about a couple weeks later, they release this photo of Rachel Ziegler wearing the traditional dress, surrounded by CGI white dwarfs.
So whitewashed.
I think that was you guys. I think you said this earlier.
Yeah, I think that we certainly played an outsized role. Obviously, there was a lot of backlash beyond just us, but we took very direct action. We put our money on the line to directly challenge them. And, 2 weeks is the speed of light for a corporation the size of Disney. And you can just look at this CGI photo that they released. It's so below the quality standards of Disney, who are the greatest animators, in all of human history. They obviously rushed this thing out. This is crisis management. And I think that if we weren't the entire crisis, I think that we were the most acute part of the crisis for them at that time.
I think it's the announcement of your Snow White that made them say, oh no. The previous segment, we're talking about how Disney is admitting to their shareholders. This is from the end of their quarter 3 and in September. So this is a month before you guys announced. They are outright telling their shareholders, we are losing money because of a misalignment between the content and the culture we make and what the public actually wants. That's in the end of September. They know this.
Yeah.
In October, you announce, and I guarantee there's someone at Disney being like, what happens when Disney's Snow White bombs and Daily Wire's Snow White breaks records? That is going to be the Disney brand falling into the toilet.
They're going to try taking their writers because Disney has no substance or stories with any meaning at all. And that's why people aren't connecting with it.
They're going to screw this up too.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Well, what they'll do with this, I think, and I think that the photo sort of speaks to this, is it will just be a beat for beat retelling of the 37 film.
Right.
Can they screw that up? Sure, but good thing they have going for them. It will be hard to screw up because they have one of the great animated films of all time to model it after.
That's true, but I think they're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
I think
they'll slip things in there.
So if you take a look at the Marvels, the Marvel movies plan after Robert Downey Jr. was Brie Larson would take over as the central figure, with Captain Marvel replacing Iron Man as the centerpiece. But she was so despised in the press for being this woke, angry leftist. And to be fair, it's not just wokeness. She really did not mesh well with the other actors. Ziegler is doing the same thing. She is coming out snooty, snide, condescending, arrogant, and overly woke. I think that's going to cause them problems for this film. I think you're right, they're going to do a shot-for-shot remake, but they're going to have PR problems because of her.
Well, I think they've got another problem. You look at this photo of her with the CGI dwarves, and the question that I have is she even in this photo? Did they do a photo shoot? Right. She is a living, breathing human, and sure, there's a lot at stake at pissing off Disney, but how are they going to get her to keep her mouth shut about this? They haven't been able to get her to shut her mouth up until now.
They've replaced the faces of actors before on movies, haven't they? When someone like messes up and they're like, we got to just replace that person. Maybe they'll do that to her. Because look, they kind of like surrounded her with the patriarchy in this picture. They just took a bunch of white dwarves and like, you know what? This is what you get.
Yeah. There's sneezy patriarch and grumpy patriarch.
But think about it. Maybe it's possible this actress never actually believed any of the garbage. and was just saying this because her agent and Disney were like, this is what we're going for. And so she said, okay, I'll say these things on the carpet. I think the likelihood is she's woke.
Well, I'll go a little further and just say, I don't know how, is she 20 years old, 22 years old or
She's
something?
a kid,
She's
yeah.
just a kid. I've said a lot of bad things about her lately because she put herself in a position where I need to publicly oppose her. But at the end of the day, on a human level, I have a lot of sympathy for dumb kids being dumb kids.
For
You know,
sure.
but I just got to say, I got to push back. We got to stop calling 22-year-olds children.
No, you know, I actually appreciate you calling me out on this. I went on at length about this publicly not 2 weeks ago, that we infantilize adults by calling them kids.
Right.
She is young, and she's particularly young in the way that our culture measures age today. And so I have some sympathy for her. But you're right. She is no kid. She's an adult. She has agency. She's responsible for her actions.
And
I take that rebuke.
Yeah, and I think, because I was talking about this earlier too, we need to like the millennials are our lost generation. I'm sorry, guys. I know everyone's like, but Tim, you're a millennial. I know, but I talked about the survey last week. Boomers, Gen X, and Gen Z all say they will be comfortable with 120,000 a year. Millennials, the one generation, they say they need 500,000.
500,000 a year.
Yes, yes. And there's some weird thing that happens. And I know she's 22, so she's actually Gen Z, I believe then, right? It's not absolute, it's not one for one. Right. But we need to start telling people, like, you need to be an adult, you need to start taking care of yourself. But that being said, imagine she is genuinely woke, genuinely opposes patriarchy and all that, and then one day, like you said, is she even in this photo? They rushed out CGI. They cranked this photo out. I imagine she gets blindsided by this.
Oh, the oldest, whitest Bob Iger. Right? Just takes away her little dream.
That's right.
Yes.
And she's contractually obligated. I wonder if she got an angry phone call. What is this? I don't want to be a part of this. It's insulting and ableist.
Wasn't it not just her saying this? Wasn't it? Isn't Wonder Woman?
Gal Gadot,
wasn't she also saying?
She was, but if you watch the clips with Gal Gadot, and I realize I'm being very soft here on all of these guys, which isn't my usual reputation, but if you watch Gal Gadot standing beside her saying things like, we're not going to be saved by the prince, and you can kind of tell that Gal Gadot is trying to be generous to this young woman standing next to her. Right.
She's also trying to like be one of the girls and be on the team. You know, she's trying to have friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I cannot stand how feminists insult women. And I'll tell you why.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just feminists. I understand that back in the day, men would laugh at, oh, my wife goes shopping. Oh, geez. And I'm just like, there's this article that was put out today that claims women are better hunters than men. And that this university, yeah, right. Jeremy's face is like, are you kidding me? Yeah, they said women actually can do endurance better than males can, which means in the prehistoric days, they were hunting more than we realize and we're better. And I'm like, no, just stop. Shut up. Women going and gathering and protecting and raising children is honorable and extremely important. But in this Malthusian political era where they despise the creation of more humans, they have to insult women for being caregivers.
The greatest technological advancement since fire is not the printing press, it's not the internet, it's not electricity, it's the sanitary napkin. And the thing that no one really can contemplate in today's day, even women today a woman today is so disconnected from every woman who lived before the 20th century that she can't really even imagine what life was like. I know that women weren't the great hunters in days of yore because they were pregnant all the time.
Right.
Or had tiny babies that they were nursing all the time, or couldn't leave the cave for one out of every handful of weeks. Because
well, and that still happens in Nepal.
I was going to say, you can look at India and Nepal today, and it's still happening. You have to look for it, but it's still happening. And the life of a woman in pre-industrial times, for this particular reason, is so different than we can possibly imagine. It's just we live on the other side of sanitary napkins and birth control pills, and we think that we know what women have been like throughout all of history. That's absurd.
So they make this narrative Snow White is insulting when in fact it is beautiful.
Of course it's beautiful, yeah.
And all of these other tropes about women and their desires and what they want. I was reading that why do women like shopping? Because it's the modern equivalent of gathering. And I'm like,
I think it's because they like pretty things.
Well,
that's why I go shopping.
But why do you like pretty things? Colorful things in the wild, berries and fruits. The reason why women can see more shades of different colors, the reason why women are more likely to be tetrachromats, seeing with the wider spectrum, is because the idea being, and I'm not saying it's 100% correct, but it's plausible, women are gathering, collecting, foraging, extremely important for human civilization, and men were hunting. Mm-hmm. So men have spatial reasoning and like they can map things better, but women create human beings.
Oh yeah, they do these studies all the time. You like put men and women in a circle in a room, and over time, all of the women begin to lean in and all of the men begin to lean out looking for predators. It's just,
oh wow,
we're just wired.
Camille Paglia talks about that with the women in Italy, and she talks about how absurd it is now that women and men are meant to do the exact same type of job. And she talks about in the old villages, the women would gather around, the well or the pump. And this comes up in Newt Hampson as well, and the growth of the soil and all of that stuff. Women create these communities, and it really is kind of tragic that these communities have fallen apart, because that's where you would learn things about raising your children. That's where you would learn things about preparing food and making clothing and all of these kinds of things. And now it's just gone.
Yeah, building community is something that women are uniquely good at. And, so I'll self-promote for a minute. We've just released the trailer yesterday for this new film that we're doing called Lady Ballers. And I give a speech in the film about the difference between men and women. And the whole film, you're seeing men just completely dominate women's sports.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.